I am Tenitra Batiste, and inquiring minds want to know how the Falcons can make a trip to Sugar City a little sweeter with a W.
I'm Aaron Freeman, and I'm enjoying this holiday season of Kirk Simber, but also at the same time, I can't wait for it to be over.
I'm Jarvis Davis, and I'm trying to figure out what Raheem knows that we don't know.
ATL! ATL!
Rise up, A-Town. It's the Falcons Squad. Everything Atlanta Falcons every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the ATL. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Straight from the ATL, the Falcons Squad Show starts now.
Welcome to the Falcons Squad Show, your home for the best Atlanta Falcons football talk. I'm your host, Tenitra Batiste. Alongside me, our Locked On Falcons host, Aaron Freeman, Locked On analyst, Jarvis Davis, and of course, 11 Live anchor, Maria Martin, will be back with us down the road. Not next week. I was going to say next week, guys, but hey, next week we'll be celebrating like everybody else, but you know our girl will be back on the other side of that holiday. Today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Now, what does your gut tell you about spinning the block with 18? We'll discuss. And what's Brick's biggest concern heading to Arizona? We'll debate it. Also, X factors for a second straight win. We'll download on that too. But first, I had thoughts. So, Jarvis, Coach Raheem Morris said, quote, everything is on the table regarding Kirk Cousins' future this offseason. Cousins, of course, is under contract 2 more years in Atlanta, but also is a $57.5 million salary cap hit each year. Now, again, he said, quote, we will all sit down at the end of the season and have those discussions and talk about those things. That will certainly be a part of it. We plan on the amount of years we put in his contract and hopefully potentially more. We will see where that goes, but that is definitely up for discussion. So it's not that we ever thought that Raheem Morris wasn't valuing Kirk Cousins as a starting QB or that Kirk Cousins couldn't be valuable as such. He didn't just play that way at the end of last year when we needed it most, and that's what forced me to make the switch. Of course, again, that's Raheem Morris talking and me ad-libbing ever so slightly. But when you think about all that commentary that Raheem Morris had about Kirk Cousins, Jarvis, does Raheem know something we don't?
Well, when you use some of the verbiage that Raheem used, he used a lot of we. He was speaking a lot of French. He's saying we gonna have a conversation at the end of the year. We gonna figure out, we gonna put everything on the table, and we are gonna have a discussion about that. That man's speaking a lot of French for a lot of people assuming that he's gonna get fired at the end of this year, or at least want him to get fired at the end of this year. So I don't. He's speaking with a lot of confidence. For a guy who's seemingly on the hot seat and potentially could lose his job at the end of the year. So that makes me wonder. I mean, and I think that ultimately Arthur Blank doesn't want to fire Ra, and he might lean towards not actually doing that and letting these guys ride it out at least for one more year. But man, it seemed like he got confirmation there. I believe in you, Raheem, and I think you guys gonna get this thing figured out. That's what it seems like he's heard, and I know a lot of Falcons fans don't want to hear that at this moment.
And Aaron, it's interesting because as much of that quote was about Kirk Cousins and maybe what Raheem Morris's thoughts are on Kirk Cousins, that he's a valuable QB, that he never said that he wasn't or never thought that he wasn't, but that it was more about, hey, we're going with Michael Penix Jr. based on what we saw trailing the 2024 season versus what Kirk Cousins is more often than not. To me, the real tea leaves were just what Jarvis said. You're not talking about evaluating a quarterback for 2026 if you don't think you're coming back. So it just kind of felt like maybe there's a level of confidence, not to say that Arthur Blank and Raheem Morris have had a sit-down conversation already and determine what's going to happen for 2026, but it sure does sound like Raheem Morris is talking in future code.
Yes. This is Raheem Morris, right? Like, he is a very positive,
Yes,
optimistic,
very
confident person, right? This is what you're getting with Raheem. This is why players love him. This is why people love Raheem, and the way that he speaks. And so you are sitting here like, is this just Raheem being Raheem? And saying with the same sort of bravado that he's always talked about. You go back to his first year, like, oh, we're going to figure out the quarterback situation. We're going to coach up these young players. Like, he's always been that type of guy. And sometimes he delivers on those promises, and sometimes he doesn't necessarily deliver on those promises. And so you're trying to split the difference of, like, is that just Raheem being Raheem, or, as Jarvis said, is he getting assurances behind closed doors that he's going to be around? And so, this is going to be the topic of discussion for the next 3 weeks as we build towards quote unquote Black Monday on January 5th, that Monday after the regular season ends, where we find out, who are all the coaches going to get fired. And sometimes, we wait a couple of days to see certain defensive coordinators get fired on the weekends and ruin people's weekends because they have to go and do pods and all that. But anyway, I'm not going to get into that.
Aaron sounded a little triggered right there, but I'm just saying about what he thinks is going to happen in 3 weeks. But okay,
but yeah, we've heard Raheem say things like this for the last several weeks when people have asked him questions about what are you going to do in 2026. Basically, since Michael Penix went down, the questions about the quarterback situation, which is very much in flux, and he has spoken with confidence as if he's going to be one of the people making that decision. And like, this quote is probably the most sort of forward of like, oh yes, I plan on sitting down with Kirk and everybody, and we're going to be making this decision after the season. It's like, are you going to be here, Raheem? Like, I don't know if you're going to be here at this point in time. And it's like, but like, he's saying it with such confidence. You're like, he must know something that we don't know, as Jarvis put it. And so like, you're sitting there going like, what's going on in Atlanta? So it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Yeah. And I think you hit on something there, Aaron. It's probably less about a definitive between Arthur Blank and Raheem Morris than it is about Raheem Morris's supreme confidence in himself, his optimism, and his belief that he'll get an opportunity, and maybe should get an opportunity, to run it back next season. But I got to just do a quick sidebar, because sometimes our everydayers, they just take it there. And one of our everydayers said Jarvis triggered them with that title for the show. Which, if you guys don't see it, Raheem Morris has confirmation in all caps, no cap, that he's back for the Atlanta Falcons. But he does have a question mark. So we are not making a declaration here on this show, but we are just saying that these tea leaves are just really interesting. And then Mr. 420 Puffa says, if Raheem is back, I'm not responsible for the holes I'm going to punch in this drywall. So, yeah. So I just wanted, it's still Therapy Thursday, right? Exactly. It's still Therapy Thursday on some level with this show. But real talk, it is actually a topic that is a lightning rod, because I was listening to our former station 92.9 just ahead of the weekly interview that they do with Raheem Morris, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the comments that the host made was he did a little straw poll. There were 9 members of the media at Flowery Branch yesterday to speak with Raheem Morris and, of course, other players. And the poll was as evenly split as you're going to get with an uneven number. 5 thinking Raheem Morris is not coming back, 4 thinking he is. And within that 5, they weren't 100% that he's not coming back. And within that 4, they're not 100% that he is. So I think it's just very interesting. I think we're all kind of trying to figure it out. But ultimately, if you ask me, I kind of stand with the 4 as well. I've been saying this for weeks. I feel like it's leaning in the direction of him coming back. It's nothing that I've been told, but it's just kind of what I feel, and what Raheem Morris had to say, and the way he came with such a strong conviction and resolve in what he said. I feel even more so like, okay, well, maybe we're onto something. Now, that said, when you think about what these last 3 games are about, and I think, Aaron, both you and Tori in particular answered this question this way on Monday's squad show. It's like, but wait, we still have 3 games to play. And it may not be, you said it specifically, Free, it may not be about 3 wins. It may be, even if you lose within those 3 games, how'd you lose? That may also dictate what 2026 brings for Raheem Morris and company. So when you think about the struggles on the road that this Atlanta Falcons team has had this year, even with a seemingly regressing team like the Arizona Cardinals, you just kind of never know what can happen. I hate to take you back to a bad place, but obviously the shutout loss to the Panthers, maybe the most devastating, the disappointment in San Francisco, because if you kind of think about it, that felt like a winnable game. Patriots, same thing, felt like a winnable game. Jets, darn sure was a winnable game. And so those are some struggles, Jarvis, that are well documented. So when you look at that, can Raheem Morris even put a product on the field against the Cardinals to increase his chances of coming back as a starting point?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, because he's still here, right? I mean, I don't think that when you look at the type of team that Arizona is, and they've lost 6 straight. Kyler Murray is nowhere to be found. He's somewhere playing video games and stuff. And Aaron, why you making these faces, man? Why are you doing me like that, dog?
That one kind of deserved a face, Jarvis. I'm not gonna lie.
You think I just be pulling stuff out the air?
Kyler ain't doing nothing. He's at home playing Call of Duty, and you had to call him out for it. Why
Right.
you do that to him?
Yeah, well, he wasn't bothering anybody.
You understand the reference. Like, the man likes to play video games. You know what I'm saying? They check the time. They check the FaceTime on this man's iPad. He wasn't studying enough. They put it in his contract. Come on, man. Like, I'm just not pulling stuff out of my behind. It may sound like it sometimes. And, hey, I might every now and then. But, you'll never know. That's just how I get down. But anyway, when you think about the type of team that you're playing against, and, this is a failing team. And the Falcons aren't too far behind because they went on a 5-game losing streak this year. So, and their quarterback is somewhere getting surgery and hopefully rehabbing and trying to get back by the start of next season. But when you think about what's at stake here, I think that we talk about some of the deficiencies that they've had on the road. Can you put together a good performance? Yeah, I think so. I like the game plan that Zach Robinson came up with last week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They were able to take advantage of doggone Kyle Pitts being that dude, a number one target. Like, wow. Imagine that concept. We had a conversation about Kyle Pitts being the guy, the go-to man. They planned it and they went out and executed it, and it looked really good, right? Mm-hmm. And now with Drake potentially coming back, and having Kyle Pitts in the fold, are you in a space where you can come up with a game plan to make both of those guys work in sync together and this offense still flows, right? Because we know that it was either Drake or bust when Drake was healthy before, and now that Drake has been out, it's been Kyle Pitts or bust, because you can't count on Darnell Mooney, David Seals, and Devin Tompkins and Carter, like whatever, all the little hodgepodge wide receivers that they've been throwing out here this year. So I'm looking forward to Zach Robinson coming up with a nice game plan. Okay, what can we take advantage of? And then them going out and executing. I think that will go a long way for Raheem Morris to potentially keeping his job like he feels like he's going to do.
Yeah. And I think too, Aaron, show and improve. Again, sometimes the Falcons have shown us, and I'm being generous, sometimes the Falcons have shown us that they are the ultimate get back squad. Or get back right squad. So you never know what might happen in Arizona this coming weekend. But you got to think that if they can actually beat a team that they should beat, that this could go very far in the way of Raheem Morris retaining his job.
Yeah, definitely. Like, we've seen this team struggle when they've gone to the Mountain Time Zone last year in Denver and this year in the Pacific against San Francisco. So you got to find a way to cross those time zones and not come out flat like we've seen this team routinely do on the road. You talk about this Cardinals team that's on a 6-game losing streak, and the Falcons earlier this season on a 5-game one. These are two very similar teams, right? Their aging backup quarterbacks are now starting the games and seemingly giving them more than what their young up-and-coming starters were at the beginning of the season. You have teams, we'll see if the Falcons get Drake London back. Marvin Harrison has been beat up as well, and he might be on the mend coming back. But these are two offenses, passing games that are spearheaded by the tight end, Trey McBride in Arizona, Kyle Pitts currently in Atlanta. And you have two defenses that have been up and down this season, but can certainly play at a high level or capable of doing that. And so these are two kind of teams that on paper are kind of evenly matched. And so I think for Raheem Morris, the best selling point that he can make to claim this job is to basically say, oh, we're not evenly matched. We're the significantly better football team than this Arizona Cardinals team. And we're going to go out there and prove it on a Sunday. And if you don't do that, if you're Arthur Blank, how does that factor in? We talked about the win against Tampa Bay where the Falcons came on really strong in the fourth quarter, but up to that point, they played a really sloppy, undisciplined game. And we talked about that on Monday's Falcon Squad, where it's like, is that really moving the needle in Raheem Morris's favor, even though you've seen the W at the end of the result? But the process to get to that W was not the prettiest process. And I think for Raheem Morris, you got to start winning a little bit more pretty, right? It's not just simply, hey, let's get wins against bad teams. Let's beat bad teams and show that we are a significantly better team, so that if you're going to bring him back, you can buy in the confidence that the lows of this 2025 season are in the past as opposed to in the future. And so I think that's going to be a big challenge for the Falcons, and we'll see if they can deliver on it. But this has been the Falcons' problem, where they play down to their competition and they play up to their competition. And we'll see on Sunday if they can finally, the one truly impressive win that they've had against a bad team this year was the New Orleans Saints, which we all appreciate, because we're Falcon fans. But can we get a couple more of those to close out the season? We got another game against the Saints. We got this game against the Cardinals. I think winning big in those two games and then also playing up to the Rams will be huge in Raheem Morris's favor if Arthur Blank wants to justify keeping him back.
Indeed. So what does your gut tell you about spinning the block with 18? We'll take that under further review. This episode of our Falcon Squad Show is brought to you by Prize Picks. Now, you and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Now, don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season, whether you're following the NFL, NBA, or both. There's no better time to jump in on the action. If you haven't tried it, Prize Picks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere Prize Picks operates, including California, Texas, and right here in Georgia. Now, I've been using Prize Picks during both football Sundays and NBA tip-offs, and it gets very exciting. And you can pick your favorite players like Mahomes and Steph Curry to see how many predictions play out. Or if you did use Patrick Mahomes, of course, that would have been a good thing before his season-ending injury. But nevertheless, there's still a lot of good quarterbacks out there who are playing at a high level, including a guy named Drake May, who could be a good look for you. We know Steph Curry is just still blowing it out of the waters when it comes to points scored per game. And of course, there's this cool feature called Stacks. It's a game changer. You can now pick more on Steph's points, threes, and assists in the same lineup. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. So, Aaron, when you think about what Raheem Morris said and the thoughts that he shared on Kirk Cousins, coupled with what we told you earlier this week on our Monday Squad Show about Cousins' thoughts on a return to Atlanta, which he was kind of deferring to having that conversation after the season. Deep down, do you think Kirk Cousins would like to come back? Does the potential of him being the starter as Michael Penix heals maybe play a factor in that?
I think deep down, Kirk wants out of Atlanta. I think there is certainly a path where he could return if he gets out on the open market, because as we've discussed before, like the Falcons kind of have to cut Kirk Cousins just from a salary cap standpoint, just trying to restructure that deal to bring him back another year, which they could do, and save a similar amount of money. But you're just kind of kicking that can down the road, similar to what they did when Matt Ryan was here at the beginning of the Terry Fontenot era, and that created such a an issue to sort of break from that contract and sort of reset, and they're still dealing with kind of the fallout of that. I don't think the Falcons should want to jump immediately back into doing that again, given what they went through previously over the last couple of years. And so I think if you cut Kirk Cousins, assuming that will happen again, last year we were sitting here, oh, they were definitely going to cut Kirk. They didn't cut Kirk Cousins. So I won't make that assumption, that mistake again. But if you're assuming that cut is happening, I think Kirk is going to try to go to a place where he can be guaranteed the starting job for a full season, not have to look over his shoulder at a young quarterback. We'll see if his performance down the stretch will give him that sort of flexibility. I think given what we've seen over the last year from Kirk Cousins, I don't think any team, I think the Atlanta Falcons were the last team to truly sort of tie their fate to Kirk Cousins in that way in terms of guarantees and not have a plan B at that point in time, which the Falcons did ultimately have with Michael Penix. And so if Kirk can't find that ideal situation for himself, then I could see a path where, he could be more amenable to come back to Atlanta. But I do think, like, ultimately, if Kirk had his pick, all things being equal, yeah, he's taken door number 2 in exiting stage left.
Yeah. And for you make a great point about what we thought last year, right? We looked at all of the opportunities, including like a Pittsburgh Steelers, a Cleveland Browns and the like. And we looked at some of the connection points that Kirk Cousins had with some of the coaches on those various staffs and thought, clearly, this is going to be an opportunity for the Falcons to part ways, and didn't. So you're right. This could be the same scenario that they find themselves in again this season, where Kirk Cousins is kind of low-key demanding that he be brought somewhere else, sent somewhere else. And in my mind, Jarvis, I'm thinking about this developing story in Cincinnati where there are rumors that, hey, Joe Burrow is like, if you can't get me a serious squad on both sides of the ball, then I want out of here. And then all of a sudden, Cincinnati is looking to replace their franchise QB and may want a bridge type of starter. So those scenarios are going to play themselves out. Again, the question may become whether or not the Falcons decide that they are going to need him as the quality QB, or if Kirk Cousins even wants to push the envelope to say, nah, I'm good here. Let me go out there to free agency and see what happens.
I think I'm with Free. I think deep down he wants out, right? Because, he wants a fresh start. But I think as the season goes along and Kirk really understands and realizes what his market could potentially be, I don't think it's going to be that great unless you have a dream scenario or that plays out in Cincinnati. They ain't trading Joe. I know Cincinnati's front office is dumb as a box of rocks, and they got like 3 employees. They like the equivalent of the NCAA in there. How many employees they have? They got like 3 to 5, like, you know what I'm saying, or 6, 7. You know what I'm saying? However you want to put it. I think that's the. I think that's a dream scenario, and if Kirk is banking on him leaving and taking advantage of that particular situation, then he really doesn't want to leave, because you have to look at this thing from a realistic standpoint and say, all right, who's looking for a young quarterback? Who's a guy? What's the situation that I would like to be in? Do I want to go back to Minnesota and help out J.J. McCarthy and be a backup there? Or because, hey, that's where I set my feet down and, I raised family. I was there for a long time, and my wife wouldn't mind going back there. Though that's the type of conversation he needs to be having at this moment. So I feel like for those reasons, there's a small possibility, because I think the reason why he doesn't want to come back because he still wants to be the starter and he have to worry about nobody breathing down his neck. I get that. That's a competitor in him. But at some point, you have that realization and you come to it and you say, my wife's family down here, it may not have played out the way I wanted it to, but I might be able to give me a few more starts, and I got a house down here, and I might be okay. I'd be willing to engage on potentially coming back. So that's how I see that scenario probably playing out, because I can say this: Kirk likes the media down here in Atlanta. You know, he'll run his mouth. He'll have diarrhea in the mouth. We know that. And so as long as he doesn't get the Falcons to lose another draft pick, I think he'll be fine.
Yeah. So I mean, for me, I think that the same. Like, I don't think he really wants to be here in principle, because, hey, why not part ways, clean slate, opportunity, maybe even with a contender, and he can end his career on that note, as opposed to, as you mentioned, Jarvis, kind of looking over his shoulder, wondering, okay, am I going to be basically sidelined once again for this particular the same quarterback, just maybe a different scenario on how I'm sidelined because he's coming back from injury? No, thank you. That might be too complicated. Before you complicate things and before you decide how my career will potentially end, because I'm already 38, then what I'm going to do is try to get out there and get ahead of it. I'm going to ball out these next 3 games and just make sure that some team knows that if you need a legit starter, I'm still capable of being that legit starter. Now, when we look at what has made us really take a second look, maybe a third look at Kirk Cousins the last couple of weeks, is the play of Kyle Pitts. But that play of the NFC Offensive Player of the Week has looked pretty good, because he's been the number one option for you. Well, maybe not this Sunday, because Drake London has returned to practice and he looks like he's trending towards playing this week. So if that's the case, Zach Robinson has to think about this. Is there a world where maybe he can come up with a scheme where both of these players have success against the Cardinals? And if so, what does that scheme look like from Z-Rob?
Is there a world? Yes. Are we living in that world? I don't know, because we haven't seen it really this point up to the point in the season, right? Like it's basically when Drake London's out there, he is the featured weapon, and Kyle Pitts is just catching checkdowns. That's basically what he does. And then he'll get an occasional explosive or whatever. And that's basically what his role in the offense has been for most of this season when Drake London has been in the lineup. And as you say, T, like when Drake has been out of the lineup, it's like, oh, well, ain't nobody else beating man coverage. So Kyle, it's all on you, my guy. And so there is absolutely a world where you can feature both of these guys. You know, again, obviously Drake is going to get the lion's share of those targets if he's healthy, but because he may not be 100%, that gives an opportunity, I do think, for Kyle Pitts to do a lot, pick up more of the slack in this Sunday, should Drake London play coming off that PCL sprain in his knee and whatnot. So I think there is absolutely a world where that's could possible, but we played 14 games and we haven't really seen it yet. And so it's like,
yeah,
maybe we'll see it in the final 3 games, but you know, I'm not going to hold my breath on it.
Right. Yeah, and it's funny because as I'm reading the comments, Jarvis, it's like they're going up and down, back and forth about what the possibility of that might be, as far as even getting this first win, because it's the kind of game, you laid it out too, Free, where you go to the West Coast, you should win it, but you might play down to your competition and you might fall back into, Zach Robinson, that habit of calling a vanilla game, because that's what we saw most of the season. So what's that world look like? Free said, okay, we're not living in that world right now, but if the Falcons happen to start living in that world at 4 or 5 Eastern time Sunday, what does that look like with Drake potentially coming back and being the one again?
Yeah, I think I can assume that it's going to look like what it looked like early in the season when you had a Kyle Pitts in, you had Drake London in there, and you were questioning a lot of things, like the world that we are currently living in, and not that world that makes sense to be able to utilize multiple weapons or multiple guys that can beat man coverage. And how do you get those guys involved in the game plan together and not just make or break? You know what I'm saying? Like if there's one guy not being able to do what he needs to do, then the offense just looks sporadic. So I think that Zach Robinson is in a space where, because let's just say Raheem Morris He got that inside source. He coming back. Somebody got to be the scapegoat. And I don't think Marquise Williams is going to be enough to get rid of.
Yeah.
So maybe Zach is in a space where, hey, man, you coaching for your job, Jack. So
or
you better figure this thing out
elsewhere.
Huh?
I said, or coaching for his job elsewhere. Because that's the other piece. Like, you may be a done deal for this OC position. And I want to go back, since Jarvis, you kind of started there, just want to go back real quick to let Freeway in on that. But that was a thought that I had as well. Like, what job, like, is he coaching for? Because we all keep talking about Raheem Morris kind of coaching for his job. But I don't know so much that Ulbrich is coaching for his. And I think we kind of all feel like Marquise, that might already be a done deal. But Zach Robinson might be not so much coaching for the Falcons, but maybe he's coaching to get a job at maybe his alma mater. I don't know.
We'll see. I think the challenge for Raheem, if he's planning on dismissing Zach Robinson, is who's he going to replace him with? Because everybody knows that if Raheem is brought back this year, that he's on the hot seat. He's going to be number one on FanDuel Sportsbook in terms of the first coach to get fired, in terms of the best odds going into the 2026 season. And so who are you going to be able to attract to get to take over that offensive coordinator position, knowing that, like, the team you're signing up for might get blown up a month into the season? And, you know, you had Jeff Ulbrich sort of because of Raheem's relationship, and you're like, who is that offensive coordinator that Raheem has a very special relationship with, that he can say, hey, come help me out, man. Come save my job or whatever. I don't know who that person is. Maybe it's Mike McDaniel. Maybe he's fired in Miami. We'll see, all that stuff. But, like, outside of that, like, I don't know who that person is. And so I think that's probably the best case that Zach Robinson has, in addition to how he performs and coordinates these last 3 games, which is, like, I don't know if there's a Jeff Ulbrich of the offense coming to save Raheem.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, it can't, who's that going to be? Because it certainly cannot be another newbie to being an offensive coordinator. That obviously did not work. It would have to be somebody who has an offensive mind and who's a veteran. And maybe, like you said, Aaron, it's that guy who unfortunately gets the axe as a head coach. Or maybe you're the OC who was good, but you got caught up in the firing of a head coach. And maybe this is your bridge year, so you don't mind taking a chance in what could potentially be a bridge position, or maybe like a 1-year prove it deal, because you're coming in Raheem's pretty much prove it year. So yeah, that to me would be the only place you would go if for some reason Zach Robinson is gone, like we kind of sort of think he will be. Then who takes over for him in that space? Now, Jeff Ulbrich, I don't think he's necessarily coaching that hard for his job, but I know that he still needs to have his defense play top shelf if this team is supposed to win or is going to win in Arizona. So what's Brick's biggest concern? We'll unpack that next up. Thank you to our everydayers for making the Falcons Squad Show your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. So, Jarvis, what has to be Jeff Ulbrich's biggest concern coming into this matchup Sunday against the Arizona Cardinals?
For me, it has to be an old nemesis, specifically a position, Trey McBride. When you think about the tight end position, the Falcons they struggled for so many years covering this tight end. And I think that with the Cardinals coming into this game, with potentially that being the only option that can go to, it's kind of like, Marvin Harrison Jr. been dealing with some injuries and stuff like that. So I think that with what McBride is doing and how they've been able to utilize him and seemingly not having a choice to use him, they've had some success, with that. And I think that you can't let a tight end beat you. Like you can't do exactly what the Bucs did last week, right? So for me, I feel like that is going to be the #1 thing that said, don't let a tight end beat you. And I think that, and that's going to be by utilizing Xavier Watts in those particular situations, Jesse Bates in those particular situations, because if you don't get any pressure on Jacoby Brissett, he's going to eat you up. He's going to eat you up. He knows exactly where to go with the football, not this big cannon arm, or he doesn't have this super athletic ability, but he's going to find the open guy. He's going to get the ball to where it needs to be. So I think that priority number one, and probably number two as well, stop the tight end. Do not let this man beat you. Do not let this man put multiple touchdowns up on you, because that would be a travesty. And I feel like just because I said it would be a travesty, it's a possibility that it might happen. I'm not saying it is, right, but I think that Ulbrich has to have a game plan in place to make sure the tight end doesn't get off.
And for you, Aaron, when you think about this defense and how it played even this past Thursday against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and we saw the best of them at the beginning, the best of them when necessary towards the end, but it was a little shaky in the middle. Kind of what's your biggest concern for Jeff Ulbricht's unit coming into this matchup Sunday?
It's very similar to what Jarvis just said. You can't let Trey McBride beat you like he did 2 years ago when you lost to the Arizona Cardinals and you got one-on-one with the Richie Grant to sort of seal that game. You can't let Jacoby Brissett beat you either, like he did 6 years ago with the Indianapolis Colts, where he just picked apart this defense because you couldn't get any pressure on the quarterback, as Jarvis also put out. So it's one of those things. You were able to get Baker Mayfield on the ground 5 times last week, really 7 if you discount the nullified penalties, plays and whatnot. Mm-hmm. Bucs offensive line is much better than this Cardinals offensive line. They're not going to have their left tackle Paris Johnson this week. He's already been ruled out. And you saw what Houston was able to do to that offensive line last week. And so you got to get Jacoby Brissett on the ball, because he can't complete a pass to Trey McBride if he's on his backside. So you really want to see this pass rush really get after it. This should be another big game where we're talking 5, 6, 7, possibly more sacks in terms of what this pass rush can do. If, they've been for real this entire season, but you got to prove it again over and over and over and over again. You got to deliver. We can't have a 2-3 sack game and watch Jacoby Brissett dink and dunk with Trey McBride, all that stuff. And so I think that's going to be the big challenge. You got to get the guys up front to get after the quarterback, and the guys on the back end have to make sure that Trey McBride isn't doing Trey McBride things that he's been doing to pretty much every defense this season.
Yeah. And Jarvis, Raheem Morris said Mike Hughes will miss this week's game because of an ankle sprain. He's week to week moving forward. So Kobe Bryant, you probably will see him earn his first career start this week. And how valuable will it be for Bryant to get these reps, thinking not just in the next 3 games, but thinking about the future?
Oh, it's going to be great, because we talked about this, and I will, give a kudos to the prophet, Aaron Freeman, for talking about being done with Mike Hughes and saying, I don't want to see no more Mike Hughes and I want to see Kobe. So yeah, give me Kobe, give me more Kobe. And I think that the experience that he got last week, a lot of people want to look at, he got cooked by Mike Evans. Yeah, Mike Evans cooked a lot of folks. But guess what? He kept playing. He kept playing through. He kept sticking to him, being right there when the ball is in it. And that's all I ask when it comes to a cornerback, especially in the NFL, because there are a lot of good wide receivers in the league, but there are not that many good cornerbacks. So if you got a guy that's an undrafted free agent sticking right in the hip pocket of a guy who's going to be wearing a gold jacket 5 years after he's done playing ball, that's a good sign. That's a good sign. And I think that, for him to be able to get that experience going into a game, knowing that, hey, I'm going to be the starter, I have an opportunity to shine. Wide receiver group is not all that great. Hey, man, I can really put some good film out there for myself. So D Alfred even talked about that too. Shout out to D, you know what I'm saying, my boy, you know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? I got you, dog. You know what I'm saying? I'm here with you, baby. You know what I'm saying? What's up? But I think that he talked about how he has that confidence. Like, that's one thing that never wavers. Good, really good corners, they're stupid confident, dumb confident. You can beat them for 66 yards on the tud, and they coming back like, don't worry about it. I'm coming back. I got you. Those are the type of guys that kind of sick in the head a little bit. So yeah, that's what you want at that cornerback spot. So yeah, for him to be able to get the opportunity to be a starter for the first time, and coming off of the way he played against Mike Evans, yeah, he gave us some catches. Yeah, people gonna give up catches against Mike Evans. But man, to be able to go out there and continue to come back and continue to be sticky in coverage, even after those completions or those big plays against him, that's what you look for when you talk about a cornerback and whether or not, and asking whether or not he can play in the NFL.
And for you, it may not be free that Kobe Bryant shows us much for the next couple of weeks, just in terms of, hey, if he's put in a starting position, for one, you have to kind of catch up when you've just not been getting those quote unquote first team type of reps and getting that type of experience and opportunity before this, well, really before last week when Mike Hughes went down. But ultimately speaking, this could be good if there's something there that Jeff Ulbrich and company can see that maybe they can use to say, hey, Kobe Bryant has possibly a future here.
Yeah. Cornerback 2 has been a problem area for this team all season long.
Exactly. And not just this season, but Aaron, how long have we been having that conversation? But go ahead.
They just real been drafted.
Yeah. And, the question is, of course, going to be, could Kobe Bryant be the solution to that problem? And certainly, that's potentially on the table. But more importantly, whether he's the guy that's going to end that revolving door that we've seen at that position for 5+ years, he gives you at least an option. And piggybacking on what Jarvis said, going back and watching the film, charted him giving up like 7 catches for like 140 yards. The stat sheet looks terrible, but he was in phase on pretty much all those situations. Like he was, and you compare that to what we saw from Natron Brooks, a couple weeks ago against Carolina, where Natron Brooks was, looking like Jarvis's boy D. Alford against the Minnesota Vikings, getting turned around in coverage.
Hey, man, why you bringing up old stuff? Did you really see that pick last week, bro?
Yeah, I did.
He's cheating, bro. He's infidel.
D. Alford, but Jarvis,
I'm not Alford, baby. Come on, man.
I'm not planting the flag on D. Alford Island at this point in time because I still have memories of Justin Jefferson and what he did to that man.
I ain't saying about no island now. We ain't doing that. Terrell Reeves is my favorite corner of all time, bro. We're not doing it.
But yeah, I think Kobe Bryant has a real opportunity here to at least you can leapfrog maybe Mike Hughes, was basically we know what Mike Hughes is. He's a proven veteran. He gives us a floor at that position, and you're trying to get a player that gives you a high ceiling. And I think with Kobe Bryant, if he can play well this Sunday, he can potentially leapfrog Mike Hughes as the floor player with maybe a little bit of a higher ceiling because of what he could bring in the potential. And you talk about, that confidence that he has, right? They say football is not for the well-adjusted. Well, Kobe Bryant is one of those non-well-adjusted people, because I had Josh Kendall of The Athletic on Locked On Falcons the other day, and he was talking about how despite Kobe Bryant giving up 140 yards to the Bucs receivers, he was chirping after the game. He was talking like he had shut down Mike Evans in that game and whatnot. And so, like, as you say, like that type of confidence, like you got to appreciate it, right? To get beat like that and then to come back, chirping and wanting more. So he's got that in spades.
Yeah, I love that. So Free, I'll let you give us a little something here before Jarvis wraps us up, because we know kind of how you feel about Mike Hughes, but tell us how you really feel about Mike Hughes. I mean, you concerned about him at all, or do you care not about the injury, because we never want anyone injured. But when I said, are you even concerned at all, because you've already moved on from him anyway.
Yeah, I mean, concerned, like what is concern? Like Mike Hughes is gonna be fine, right? This man's a journeyman corner that's bounced around the NFL. He's gonna be fine. He'll find a job somewhere. He'll come. Well, I think he's got guaranteed money next year, so he ain't probably not going anywhere in Atlanta. So he can come back and be in the mix again. Like, what he is, right? Like he is a proven commodity. And when I say proven, I don't mean proven to play at a high level, but proven to play at a level that is functional in the NFL. That's why he's been in Atlanta for 3 years, right? Mm-hmm. And so, like, I'm not concerned about Mike Hughes at all. I'm concerned whether or not the Falcons, have the ammunition to upgrade that position this offseason when we get there. That's my main concern. But, Mike Hughes is going to be just fine.
Jarvis, last words on Mike Hughes.
I'm.
Ooh, no words?
No, I'm not. I'm definitely not concerned. Like he can Well, see, y'all want to make me out to be the bad guy.
Just asking, just asking a question. How are you feeling about Mike Hughes? Are you concerned at all about him and his injury as it relates to him returning here? Or are you like Aaron and you've already moved on?
You changed the question. Like, you asked me about his well-being as a
no. I mean, no. I said a caveat with, hey, we never want ill will. We're never wishing ill will about the injury piece. But when I say, are you concerned at all, meaning about him coming back, about his ability to come back and be, I'll use Aaron's pseudo word, adequate, or are you not concerned because not about the injury, but about him and his play and his future with the Falcons? Are you not concerned because you've already moved on?
Oh, he can pound sand, like for real, like seriously. Yeah, I want to see the young pup play. I know exactly what Mike Hughes is as a player, and he's not a starter, in my humble opinion. Like, he's not a starter for on a team that is going
any other contender.
Yeah. He's not. No contender is going to sign him to be a starter.
Yeah,
he could be a better backup.
Yeah. So it sounds like the front office, and this is no offense to Kobe Bryant because he may just be more one of those serviceable guys who's in the rotation, right? But it sounds like this front office is still going to be looking for number 2 at the corner position in 2026. Once again, the same area of concern and one of the same areas that has been a struggle for them for, like we said, the better part of, I don't know, seems like, well, like you said, we'll just call it what you call the Jarvis. Ever since AJ Terrell arrived, you've had corner 1, but you just can't quite get right, whether it's injury related or just subpar play on number 2. But hey, that could be the X factor. Who knows? Kobe Bryant could be the X factor for a second straight win. Someone on offense could be the X factor, or maybe in order for the Falcons not to crap the bed on this game, they'll need an X factor in every phase. We'll tell you what that means in the look ahead. So, Aaron, again, we never kind of know, although you called it. So maybe you are the sage that we just are not on this show, because you called out your X factor on offense as Kyle Pitts last week. He turns out to have a historic game for himself and a game that got him NFC Offensive Player of the Week. So who are you looking at offensively this week who needs to be that X factor in order for the Falcons to get a win Sunday?
Chris Lindstrom. He's going to be facing our old buddy Calais Campbell a lot this week. And Calais Campbell is the non-aging wonder in the NFL. Yes. Like, 6'9", 300 and whatever pounds he is, gargantuan arms and whatnot. You saw it last week where he blocked a field goal against the Texans. He can create some havoc, particularly when you have Kirk Cousins, who's not the most mobile quarterback, and that interior pressure can really give him struggles. You have other interior guys like Walter Nolan, an up-and-coming pass rusher for that Cardinals team. But if this Falcons offense, I think, is going to be effective, they're going to need to have a clean pocket for Kirk to step up into and throw in, and that's going to be a big part of Chris Lindstrom's going to be a big part of that. And also, we know Zach Robinson, whether he can create an offense that features both Drake London and Kyle Pitts remains up in the air. But we know the one thing that he can do is like, I'm just going to feed Bijan the football, and that works. I figured out that aspect of what works for this team. And if you want to see this team have a very productive day with Bijan Robinson, you're going to need Chris Lindstrom to have a productive day, because he is, sans Caleb McGarry, kind of the engine for your offense with his ability and whatnot. So to me, Chris Lindstrom, I think he's played well this season. I don't think he's played to his usual standard. I think probably dealing with that foot injury for most of the season is factored into that. But you're going to need him to kind of step up in a major way against this Cardinals front.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's a great call, because I was thinking the same, Aaron. There have been a couple of uncharacteristic games for him, probably more injury related than anything, uncharacteristic penalties on Chris Lindstrom. So yeah, if he could have a Chris Lindstrom like game, that could be a critical factor for this Falcons team. What about for you, Jarvis? Who's that X factor on offense?
I almost hate to even say it. I don't say hate. Hate's a strong word. I'm hesitant because based off of what I've seen, I should not be saying this in 2025. But I'm gonna go with Darnell Mooney, because I feel like coming into this season, nobody would have said you were smoking dope if you would have said that, hey, Darnell Mooney is going to be your deep threat this year.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be your go-to deep ball guy this year. He's going to be your man beater this year based off of what we've seen last year. So for me, I feel like this is a game that he has the opportunity to put some confidence back into the play caller and back into the head coach, because let's keep it funky. Darnell Mooney owes Ryan Newsome something. He owes him something, because if Newsome doesn't recover that fumble, we having a whole different conversation about Darnell Mooney. Like, that man might have not made it back to Atlanta from Tampa if Ryan Newsome didn't recover that ball. So I think that I think Darnell Mooney has an opportunity this week to at least start the process of people not being so disappointed in him this year, and I'm sure he's disappointed in himself, because it's just been so much inconsistency when it comes to injuries and not catching the football and just being off out there, just from a production standpoint. So I feel like this might be one of those times where we see Darnell Mooney look like the guy that we thought he was going to be.
Okay. That one is, I'm not sure what to say about that one. That one is
okay.
Wow.
Thanks, Steve. That's all about Darnell Mooney, though, doesn't it? Right? Like,
X Factor, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Because if you think about it, when we define X Factor could be that guy who maybe needs to show up better, but X Factor could also be the guy who needs to show up, period. So we'll just, so that qualifies Darnell Mooney. No question.
Thank you, T.
Yeah, I'll just go with that. You know what? I'll say for me, when I kind of look across that space as well, and trying to do like you guys and find one that maybe is not so obvious, if you will, I'll just say Elijah Wilkinson. If for no other reason, man, can you stop getting these false start penalties? I mean, 19 penalties for 125 yards where your name is called for more than one of those is problematic. And I know that Elijah Wilkinson has done the best that he could, but if the best that you can do, even if you're not carrying your weight in terms of helping Tyler Algier or Bijan Robinson get to the second level, at a minimum, stop putting your team behind the chains. That's a problem. So I'm going to go with him. What about on defense, Aaron, for you, X Factor?
JPJ. Let's see the streak continue, right? No Paris Johnson Jr., no PJJ. So JPJ should eat, right? This week. So, if we're talking 5-7 sacks on Jacoby Brissett, see if we can get 2-3 from James Pierce Jr.
Double digit sacks.
Let's see. Let's find out if all the people that are sitting here questioning the James Pierce Jr. trade, which I don't know anybody on this particular show who's out here spouting that nonsense on a Locked On Falcons podcast or anything like that. But let's have those people eat their words this week, where he gets double digit sacks as a rookie, and whatnot. So that's my X Factor.
I like it. What about you, Jarvis? Give me an X Factor on defense.
Oh, let's go with a Divine Diablo, because I think he might be part of that twosome that I mentioned that might be responsible for Trey McBride not going off. So because the coverage skills are there, right? We understand what he's able to do, and I think that him being matched up with that guy, I like that matchup, And Trey is, based off the type of player that he is, going back to the whole Kobe Bryant, Mike Evans conversation, yeah, he's gonna win some, but you want to be able to box this man in and not allow him to just take over the game. And I think that Divine Diablo has to be that guy, because you have to be able to cover tight ends with your linebackers. You can't take that safety from the back end on a consistent basis, because that means you're playing more like you're going to be playing a lot of 3D, or you're playing a lot of man coverage. And I don't know if you want to do that, at this particular moment. So I feel like, even though that's what Jeff Ulbrich is going to do, that's what he's known for, I'm saying that you don't want to be able to put that yourself in a situation on a consistent basis, you want to be able to pick and choose your spots when you want to do it. So I feel like Divine Diablo putting those clamps on Trey McBride is going to help do that.
Yeah, and I like what D Creative Vision said. I thought he came up with the obvious, which is Kyle Pitts, but I like what his point is, the back-to-back game, sort of showing that consistency, or like you guys said with a James Pierce Jr., how about a Jalen Walker complementing and being the X factor there, or even a Xavier Watts. I think that's a good call. But for me, I think that I kind of want to see Jesse Bates the third, maybe just one of those kind of vintage Jesse Bates the third games before this season ends. So I feel like maybe this weekend is ripe for the picking. So I'm going to go with him as the X factor. And then of course on special teams, it could be the whole special teams as the X factor. But Aaron, who's your X factor on special teams?
I'll go with Devin Tompkins, right? We saw Jamal Agnew get benched last week as the team's primary return specialist. So Devin Tompkins, like, job is there for the taking. If you want to have people on Falcon Squad not sitting here throwing your name out there as like a hodgepodge, as to quote a certain Jarvis Davis, as a wide receiver, it's like, hey, well, don't be a hodgepodge on kick return, right? Make your name there on special teams, and that's how you can, stick in Atlanta and elsewhere in this league. So he's my X factor if he can have a big day in return. Arizona's special teams unit is just as bad as the Falcons special teams unit. So it's an opportunity. It's similar to what we talked about last week against Tampa Bay, where it's like, this is one of the few games where our special teams might actually be a positive compared to the other team.
Jarvis, X factor, special teams.
Man, I'm going with my main man, Zane Gonzalez, baby. Let's go. Got to get Zane Gonzalez's name in there because, there have been some flubs. Don't kick the ball out of bounds, right? Can get a little bit too used to that. But yeah, I think Zane Gonzalez can be that X factor. He gives me this much operational peace when he lines up to kick the ball, between the uprights. You know what I'm saying? Just that. When he lines up to kick a field goal, I'm like, oh, okay. You know what I'm saying? I feel a little calmness. I feel like, he should be at least considered. Yeah. For the kicker spot next year. So yeah, that's where I am. I'm going with Zane Gonzalez. I feel like he can be, because we talk about playing down the competition. We laid out some things that these teams are very similar, right?
Yes.
They're in very similar spots. So this is a pretty evenly matched team. So how about Falcons just come to play like they are the better team? Right, because given their circumstances, what they put out there on tape, these teams are really close to each other.
Yeah, and I would say, and this is just kind of an answer to the question about how about Jamal Agnew or how about Mike Ford, and it's like, well, how about them? Because honestly, like you said, we've seen later in the season a few benchings on special teams. I mean, we all looked for Kadero Hodge for a minute. And finally, we saw him get a comeback last week. Jamal Agnew got benched, and then you see Devin Tompkins. So for me, it's more of whomever takes the field, whomever does not get benched, I guess might be the way to say it. You need to be that X factor. Like, you need to make Raheem Morris and Marquise Williams feel like if they're inserting you back into the team scheme, then make sure it's worthwhile for them to have done that. So that would be my X factor for special teams. Now, we appreciate you guys, as always, our everydayers, for making the Falcon Squad Show your first listen of the day. Be sure to stop by Locked On Falcons with your host, Aaron Freeman, as your second listen. The Falcon Squad Show and Locked On Falcons are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Take care, guys.